Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to go ahead and show you how I clean my aquariums. So I have a 20-gallon freshwater tank and a 30-gallon freshwater tank. One is a tropical tank, so it means it's going to be above 78 degrees, and I have a non-tropical tank which is below 78. It's a little bit cooler for my goldfish. The absolute main tools that I use to clean my tanks: a 5-gallon bucket. You can pick one of these up from Home Depot. They're like $3. Gravel hose or a gravel vacuum. This is gonna help you siphon out any, first of all, siphon out the water, but siphon out if there's any food or poop, like fish poop that has sunk beneath the rocks. It like vacuums it up. So it's not just sitting there and sitting there and sitting there for the life of your fish tank, stinking it up. The next thing I have is, this is like a little scrub brush that you can scrub the inside of the tank because algae does build up. I would recommend doing this before you siphon your tank. The last thing, I don't use this very often because I don't feel like I need to, but this is obviously a little net. Just probably the most recognizable thing any fish owner's ever seen is a net. Moving on to some of the chemicals I use. Super basic. You're gonna want to get this is stress coat. So if you're using tap water and adding that back into your fish tank, so you're taking it from the tap and putting it into your fish tank, you need to make that water safe for your fish. Regular tap water, it will destroy like their outer protective layer and cause them to be stressed out and feel sick, and they're more prone to diseases because that protective layer is getting damaged. So this is stress coat. It makes tap water safe. You definitely need this, and this is like the bare minimum of what you need. But for my fish tank, I use stress coat. I also use leaf zone, which is going to add nutrients to the water for my live plants. And then because it's so fogged up right now, I'm going to use AquaClear. This is going to clear up some of the cloudiness in the tank. And this is Algae Fix. Obviously there's a ton of algae in the tank. It's like super green, so I'm adding this as well, so it controls the algae growth. There's also like a lot of algae that grows on top of the leaves of my live plants, and so this controls that as well. We'll go ahead and get started and clean this fish tank up. So the first thing I do is I actually unplug the filter because it's not good for the filter to be running without any water pumping through it. Next, I take the gravel hose and I put this end in the bucket. So one end in the bucket, smaller end, and then with the larger end, I'm gonna stick it into the fish tank. And what I do, I don't know if you can see, is I dip it all the way in, so it's fully submerged. And then I tip it up so the water starts falling, and then I put it back under the water. The gravel vacuum is cool because you can suction up the gravel, but since I did all that last night, I'm really just trying to siphon out some water. So I can put new water and kind of get rid of this algae issue. So right now, since I don't need to vacuum my gravel, I'm just going to wait for this bucket to fill up, and then I'll come back for a second bucket, and then I use my tap water to fill the bucket up again, but we'll go through that in a second. What I have in this tank is I have a crown tail beta. I also have a couple, geez, I don't even know what they're called. I know that I have 2 albino catfish and then 2 like regular catfish. And then I also have a bunch of little fish, which I forget their names. But then this is also a live planted aquarium. I hate plastic plants. So that's, to me, is half of the fun of having a fish tank, is having a live planted aquarium. It's a lot more work, in my opinion, because you have to be extra cautious. You can't just throw any, like, if you're using something for the fish, you have to make sure that it's good for the plants too, and if you're using something for the plants, you have to make sure it's good for the fish, so it's just a lot of work. So, alright, this bucket is just about done. So what I do is I take the bottom end, I plug it like this, and then I just shove it into the water because I'm going to be back and siphon out some more. I'm going to siphon out another bucket full. So I'm going to take this to my front lawn. I'll be right back. Alrighty, so time for round 2. I'm going to go ahead and take the hose again and siphon out a second bucket. I plug the hose, and I just drop it back into the bucket, and more water is going to siphon out. Always have a towel on hand because it's not, as you can imagine, it's not the most dry job, it's not the most clean job ever. So this 20-gallon tank actually used to be a brackish tank. So a brackish tank is with a portion of fresh water and a portion of salt water. So it's not a complete freshwater or it's not a complete saltwater tank, but it is combined. And I had 3 green spotted puffers in there. Unfortunately, because it was my first tank, they all ended up passing away. I was super sad. I cried about it. I even buried the fish. But yeah, so that used to be my babies, my green spotted puffers. But at the time I had like 3+ tanks, and it was just too much. You know, I'm a full-time student, I work full-time as well, so I ended up not repurchasing any green spotted puffers and just turning this tank into a my goldfish tank, since he needed a bigger tank anyways. His name is Harold. But yeah, these get pretty big, I guess. It's a fancy goldfish. They get pretty big, so they need pretty big tanks, which a lot of people don't know that. No fish should ever be kept in a bowl. So people do keep it in a bowl, and pet stores do sell bowls, but your fish is not going to be happy if you keep it in a bowl. I'm just letting you know right now, because how I got all of this was because I had a beta fish, and I started him off in a 3-gallon, and then I just kept on getting a bigger tank. I got a 5-gallon, then a 10-gallon, then a 20-gallon, and then a 30-gallon. So this beta fish has been in all those gallons. I just keep on moving him up more and more because I didn't know. I thought 3 gallons was a big tank, and then I thought 10 gallons was big. But as you get to know your fish more and you get to love your fish, you want your fish to be happy. And so you get him a bigger tank so he can just swim like a little speed racer. Alright, so I'm going to go take the second bucket out to the lawn, and then we'll start filling this tank up. Now that my bucket's empty, I'm going to take it over to my kitchen sink, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it with water. I usually fill it up about 1/3 the way because it gets really heavy. At this point, you're going to have to lift it and dump the water in the tank, and you don't want to rest the bucket with the weight of the water on the tank, because it can cause it to crack and leak water, which we don't want that. So I'm gonna go to the sink, I'm gonna fill this up a little bit, and then we'll dump some fresh water in there.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on.
Alrighty, so I have my bucket here. It's only about 1/3, maybe 1/4 full, because I have to lift this above the fish tank rim and pour it into the fish tank. So I need to, you know, I'm buff, but not that buff. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour this into my fish tank.
Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played.
Alrighty, so while I have the bucket filling up a little bit more, I'm going to talk about some of my pet peeves of filling up some water into my fish tank. So one thing is when you're pouring the water in the fish tank, if you pour it too hard, it kind of moves the gravel around and it moves the plants around. What I suggest, and that's another reason why I only fill the bucket a little bit, is so that I can just pour it a little bit so it's not dumping it in and causing all your decorations to move around. And then another thing is I do rest it on top of the fish tank, but I don't, the weight isn't there. I have all the weight in my arms, but you can rest on the fish tank as long as, like, I mean, it's glass, so it can't bear weight, right? But yeah, honestly, if anybody has any questions about their fish, I'm not like a super professional, but I do love fish and I want my fish to be happy just like I want your fish to be happy. So if you have any questions, you can comment, you can message me, and I'd love to answer those for you to make sure that your fish is happy. I have been through a lot with these fish. I've seen fish die. When I first got fish, I was like, my fish aren't gonna die because I love them so much, but sometimes your fish die, and that happens, and it's a lot of different factors. No matter how much effort you put into it, if you can commit so much time to it but they still die, it happens. So let me go grab that second bucket of water, and I'm going to go ahead and add it into the tank. So it's inevitable. Some of my plants did come up from the gravel, so that's something that you just have to plug them back into the gravel, make sure the roots are submerged. But yeah, some of my plants did come up as I was pouring the water in. I have this little tweezer. It's like a large tweezer looking thing, because you can take the root, so say this is the plant, you can take the root and shove it back down into the, or I guess, say this is the plant and this is the root right here. You can just take it and shove it back down into the gravel. So and at this point, you can plug the filter back in, because there is a minimum level on the filter, and it's reached that point where the water can't be below that. So I'm going to go ahead and plug the filter back in so you can get that back in. You can probably hear that grinding noise. It's because for whatever reason, like maybe the water drained out of the filter. I'm going to take this little cup. Shout out to Harpoon Brewery. And I'm just going to add water to the filter. So we can get going. So it's cranking. So here's the tank. That's just a plant that came up, but that plant isn't really supposed to, I think it's a Nubius or something of that sort. Those plants aren't supposed to be under the gravel anyways. They usually like grow on like trees, like their roots are above the surface. But yeah. This is my little aquarium. It's still pretty green, but I'm working on that. I'm using the AquaClear. And then here's my little baby Harold over here. He's always such a good sport, and he's a trooper. He's not a very sensitive fish to have. Pretty easy to take care of. One more thing I forgot to mention is always just monitor the temperature, that it's not making any major changes. This lens isn't. But yeah, just make sure it's not making any major changes. But yeah, that's my tank. You can't really see my fish. Welcome to my life. Oh, there you go. There's a couple of fish. Alrighty guys, that's how I clean my aquariums. I hope you got something out of it if you're a new fish owner. It's super basic stuff. Sometimes when I'm like figuring out my process, I want to know how other people do it too. So good luck on your fish owning journey. It's a super fun hobby, especially once you start getting into like brackish, saltwater, all that good stuff, or even a like planted aquarium like I have in my 30-gallon tank. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to try my best to clear up this algae issue. But yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, please comment them below. Like, subscribe, it'll super duper help me out, and I will love you forever. Have a great night.